look, you know, we're in a small room. There's friends here, and family, and there'll be people with questions. Has anybody got a question? You know, I'm sure there's going to be a burning question out there or two.
No. What was it like being signed to Acid Jazz?
Yeah, what was it? What?
Chaotic.
Yeah, see, that's a very good point. Chaotic. The Emperor's New Clothes were signed to Acid Jazz. That is pot kettle, I'm afraid, because you were the most chaotic band I've ever come across in my life.
Just talking about you.
No, it was a mad time, and you know, talking about my record label, I grew up working at Stiff Records, which had a very us and them mentality. Us were the indies, and them were the majors, and there the twain should meet. Every time Stiff did do something with majors, they got fucked over. So it meant that I had a very skewed concept of what made an indie record label. You know, most of my contemporaries, like people like Alan McGee, were working with the majors, whereas on the whole, I saw the majors as a malign influence on both music and culture. I felt that they could be selling dog shit, and they would, you know, do a very good job at selling dog shit. And in fact, if you listen to music on majors, that's pretty much what they sell. The times that I have experienced working with majors, I haven't really enjoyed it. So, I mean, the Brand New Heavies were all right on London for a bit. London were kind of a right-on major, but I think probably because of Pete Tong, funny enough. But yeah, so that was quite an emotional thing. So I think with Acid Jazz, I was 23 when I started, 22, never run a business before, didn't know what I was doing, had 40 staff, most of whom were my mates who didn't know anything about music whatsoever. And we just muddled on through. And I think, you know, I got offered millions of pounds, £6 million to sell 50% of the label, was just one of the offers. And I couldn't bring myself to do it because I didn't like what majors did to music, you know. I was wrong, probably, because I should have sold it, and then I could have retired and not bothered. But, you know, I think that's what they do. They buy an indie label, they give you a contract for 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, they close it down and sack you, which is what happened to my dear friend Alan McGee, you know. And did I want to be sacked? No, I didn't. I was actually quite proud of what I'd done, and I didn't want them to tell me what to do about music, you know, because I don't believe they know anything about music. They know about selling washing powder. They buy up little companies who have people who do know about music, and they take what they know. And basically that's what they've always done. They've done it since the 60s, and I just find it horrible. So yes, we were completely chaotic, and that's because of my emotional attachment to chaos. And from chaos comes exciting change.
Well, it felt like, at the time, it felt like, because we were signed, was it 92?
You were quite early, probably 92 I would have thought.
Something like that. Anyway, but it did feel like, whenever we come to the office, it felt like, it was like you trying to spin all the plates sort of slightly on your own. And it felt like you were just running around.
You mean all the buffoons that were working for me at the time?
Well, one or two. Some of them were really nice.
Yeah. No, in defence, quite a lot of the people we had were pretty good and went on to work for said majors after I trained them, I think. But there is, see, the other thing is majors, when you get to own a bit of market share, every year there's, in Music Week at the end of the year, there's a little kind of pie chart. And for the first time in probably 1993, Acid Jazz had a percentage in the pie chart. Not one that you could write Acid Jazz in, one that they had a little circular line. I think it was like 1.8% of the market, which made it an enormous indie record label. And as soon as you become a threat to the majors in market share, because it's all about market share, and you don't want to sell to them, they don't like you and they don't make things easy. And you know, I had lots of arguments which I'd rather not have had, and had I sold to a major, that probably wouldn't happen. But again, mentally, I couldn't bring myself to do it. It's like.
So what was it? Was that like the only? Because it felt like it was. You know, were there no other options? Was there no other way of?
No, I did try another way.
So it kind of worked better.
No, I think the problem that all independent labels face is one of cash flow. For example, when Acid Jazz started, we had one record. We used the income from that one Galliano record to make the next 2 records, and the income from that to make the next 4, next 8. The trouble with an inverse pyramid is eventually the ends fall off until and unless you can sustain them with cash flow. Now, the inherent nature of selling something means that you go to a distributor, and a distributor pays you 4 months after the record sells, sometimes 5 months. So in that interim period, you need to exist, and it's very, very difficult. Banks won't lend to independent record businesses. So how Acid Jazz got around it was, I bought a freehold of a nightclub, and made a nightclub called the Blue Note, specifically so I could borrow enough money to keep the cash flow going at Acid Jazz. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling. That's the only other way I could think of doing it. Otherwise, it would have closed long before. And it hasn't closed now. We've had our best year for 10 years this year, funnily enough. Ironic, weirdly. In a time when the industry's collapsing, you know, it's quite strange. Anyway.
You seem quite proud of that independence that you've maintained. Well, no, actually, no, you seem really proud of it.
Tell my children, you know, I haven't had presents for Christmas. No, it's not an easy path to follow. I am proud of it, but then that's because I grew up working at Stiff Records, and if any label inculcated that philosophy, it's Stiff. You know, Stiff was a brilliant place to work and a brilliant place to learn, because it really was that to the rest of the world, you know, and they had more hits than any other British independent ever, something like 238 top 50 hits, you know, from an indie.
And now bonkers.
And they still got bought down by Polygram. But anyway, that's another story. I'm not one that I'm allowed to talk about, funnily enough.
What's your motivation? What's that?
On camera, yeah. See me afterwards.
What's your motivation for keeping on doing the Acid Jazz?
Proving people wrong, actually. You know, I was always told, I'll never forget, there's a great little story. There's an industry legend. There's someone in the industry called Nick Angel. I'll never forget this. He's a very, very successful man who now does film soundtracks, and he's really, really a clever guy, and he's done really, really well for himself. And this is quite funny. Early doors, I did want to sell to a major because I was only doing it for fun. Me and Giles set up Acid Jazz for fun. And when Giles left Acid Jazz after 18 months because he didn't like my retro music taste, he wanted to be progressive, and then signed Incognito.
Steady.
We'll leave that there. Giles, you know when it's easy. I love Incognito, don't get me wrong, Blue is a very nice man, but anyway, I was negotiating with Chris Blackwell at Island Records. I asked for £35,000 for half of Acid Jazz and a one-room office. That's all I wanted. And this went on for 14 weeks, and Blackwell was umming and ahhing. We'd had the paperwork, we hadn't had the paperwork. And then they got a new head of marketing or head of A&R or something, and it was Nick Angel. And Nick Angel, I'll never forget this, because my mate Nigel, who went on to be head of Phonogram Records, he was the tape store manager, and somehow he was in this A&R meeting every week. He said, oh, any other business? So Nick Angel's, oh yeah, Acid Jazz Records. Yeah, the brains behind that operation is I brought him to Phonogram, and you know, Acid Jazz is never going to amount to anything. Eddie Pillar's an idiot, and the brand new Heavies, what a load of old shit. So we're not going to pursue that. So just tell them to fuck off. Never forget. So Nigel phoned up and said, yeah, they're going to tell you to fuck off. Okay, well they've kept me waiting 14 weeks, which has annoyed me a bit. Yeah. 5 months later, hey Eddie, yeah. This is Island Records here. You know that band, the brand new Heavies? Yeah, they're really good, aren't they? Would you like to sell them to us? How much? 150 grand? No, you know, you can fuck yourself. And what do you mean? Why? Well, don't you remember 4 months ago you stood up and how did I know about that? He thought. Well, obviously I didn't tell him that my mate was the most juniorist. So that's how majors work. It's not cultural or musical integrity. It's a lie. And that was probably my first experience post-Stiff with a major. And from that point on, I thought, I can't work with these people. And I'm sure Nick Angel was a great bloke, and I'm sure he did very well with his career. But the transparent nature of their integrity, you know, just made me. Well, I can't really say. I've sworn too much already, but anyway, there you go.